Truth or Lies. It is 31 December 2000. New Year's Eve in Portland, Oregon. Here's the story. Columbia tragedy released. Washington, December 30th. When the first of many loud alarms sounded on the Space Shuttle Columbia, the 7 astronauts had about a minute to live, though they didn't know it. The pilot, William McCool, pushed several buttons trying to right the ship as it tumbled out of control. He didn't know it was futile. Most of the crew were following NASA procedures, spending more time preparing the shuttle than themselves for the return to Earth. Some weren't wearing their bulky protective gloves and still had their helmet visors open. Some weren't fully strapped in. One was barely seated. In seconds, the darkened module holding the crew lost pressure. The astronauts blacked out. If the loss of pressure didn't kill them immediately, they would be dead from violent gyrations that knocked them about the ship. In short, Columbia's astronauts were quickly doomed. A new NASA report released Tuesday details the chaotic final minutes of Columbia, which disintegrated over Texas on February 1st, 2003. Coincidence that it happened a month prior to the shock and awe campaign of Iraq? Think about it. Let's see. The point of the 400-page analysis is to figure out how to make NASA's next spaceship more survivable. The report targeted problems with the spacesuits, restraints, and helmets of the Columbia crew. Many of the details about the astronauts' death have been known. They died either from lack of oxygen during pressure loss or from hitting something as a spacecraft tumbled and broke up. However, the new report paints a more detailed picture of the final moments of the Columbia crew than the broader investigation into the accident 5 years ago. Astronaut Pam Melroy, deputy study chief, said the analysis showed the astronauts were at their problem-solving best trying to recover Columbia, which was starting to crack up as it re-entered Earth's atmosphere with a hole in its left wing. Damage that occurred at liftoff. There was no way for them to know that it was going to be impossible. The crew had lost control of the motion and direction of the spacecraft. It was pitching end over end. The cabin lights were out, and parts of the shuttle behind the crew compartment, including its wings, were falling off. It was very disorientating motion going on, NASA Deputy Associate Administrator Wayne Hale said in a telephone conference call. There were a number of alarms going off simultaneously. The crew was trying very hard to regain control. We're talking about a brief time in a crisis situation. The NASA study team is recommending 30 changes based on Columbia, many of them aimed at spacesuits, helmets, and seatbelts for both the shuttle and the next space capsule NASA is building. Since the incident, NASA has quietly made astronauts put more priority on getting their protective suits on, Melroy said. Okay, let me stop there for a second. So this NASA study team, after 5 years, is recommending that they put on their space suits and their protective gear when even this story says the wings were falling off behind them. That's their solution to the NASA Space Shuttle Columbia disintegrating in midair when it had a hole in the wing? Oh man, okay. Anyway, the story continues. That's why I'm calling this program Truth or Lies. So you be the judge and you tell me what you think. But the only way you're going to be able to tell me is to call me at 503-995-0567, or you can go to www.douglasbigford.com and join and make a comment and tell me what you think about this video. douglasbigford.com with 2 S's. Okay, the story continues. Okay, NASA's suits don't automatically pressurize. A basic problem of the suit design, and it is one we intend to fix with future spacecraft, Hale said. Had the astronauts had time to get their gear on and get their suits pressurized, they might have lived longer and been able to take more actions. Oh my God. As the tail is falling off, if they would have had their suits on, they would have been able to take more actions to stop the tail from falling off. You gotta wonder why they're telling us this story is happening today. The report lists events that were potentially lethal to the crew. No kidding. Loss of cabin pressure just before the cabin broke up. Really? Yeah, it has big holes in it, and they're going 17,000 miles an hour. Crew members unconscious or already dead. No kidding. So make sure they put their suits on after they're dead. Crashing into objects in the module. No kidding, as the cabin is breaking up because there's big holes in it. Exposure to a near vacuum at 100,000 feet and crashing to the ground. Really? Killed in the Columbia disaster along with pilot McCool was Commander Rick Husband, Michael Anderson, David Brown, Kalpanya Chalawa, Laurel Clark, and Israel's first astronaut, Ian Ramon. And my condolences go out to the family too. Let's see. Columbia was the second space shuttle NASA has lost. The hole in its wing was caused by a piece of foam insulation that broke off the fuel tank and slammed into it at launch. The shuttle Challenger blew up shortly after liftoff on 1986, also claiming 7 lives. Isn't that strange? 7 lives, both of them. Investigators in both accidents pointed to NASA culture of ignoring problems that later turned fatal. Dr. Jonathan Clark, a former NASA flight surgeon and husband of Laurel Clark, praised NASA's leadership for the report, even though it says in some ways you guys didn't do a great job. That's from the guy that lost his wife in it. They didn't do a great job. I guess the thing I'm surprised about, if anything, is that the report actually got out, said Clark, who was a member of the team that wrote it. There were so many forces that didn't want to produce a report because it would again put the astronauts' families in the media spotlight. Now, they didn't report. It took them 5 years, right? You got to wonder why. Kind of like the 9/11 Commission report. Anyway, I'll have more truth later for you. Have a great spirit-filled day.